Okay, thanks for coming, everybody. We're gonna call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, that's,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's what we were looking at.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with the approval of the agenda. Anything to add or corrections, Dan?
I have nothing.
No? Dwayne, anything?
Nothing for me.
Okay. Mel? Ryan?
No.
Okay. I've got two here. I'm gonna add F2, the Shooty Property Concept Plan, under F2 for committee report. And then add L5, a closed session for litigation strategy regarding the library. So those are the only two I have. Tim, did you have anything?
No, I don't have any addition.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make that motion.
Brian, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. The consent agenda, everything's in your packet. Any questions for administration on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, I'll enter...
I'll move to approve.
Thanks, Dwayne. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Visitors to the council, Doug Splitzoser, but I don't see Doug here, so we'll skip that. Mayor's report. We've got some board appointments tonight. I'll do all these at one time. I'm recommending that Colin Tinsley back to the Planning and Zoning Board, Heather Granzi to the Library Board, Greg Kubal and Roger Frankie to the Park Board. Any questions or objections on that from council? I'll entertain a motion to approve the appointments.
Motion?
Thanks, Mel. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Ryan. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 2022 appointments, designation, and committees. That's in your packet also. No changes as far as any of that stuff goes, the same as 2021, unless there's any objections. But everybody's back on the same committees, and that's, any other questions on that? Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On to public forum. I've got one card here. Dave Doubles.
I'm here, but when I came in tonight, and Brandon came by and he said, we're on here to start to get charged for $100 because our sump isn't in compliance. And, when we had the sump inspection this year, they said, we're in compliance, and I didn't think that was taking care of it. We will get it done, but I'd like to have the penalty removed until we will get it done. I mean, I don't know if you can do it in January or February, but...
Okay, because the thing that's on there isn't for the sump, it's for the foundation drain.
Well, the way they talked, everything was fine, it was in compliance. So I assumed that was that. I didn't know the difference.
Okay. Do you have something you want to...
I mean, just schedule-wise, I believe I have to go back and look at the exact schedule. That technically should have been fixed before this program even started. So now we've allowed that to slip, or these 5 property owners haven't ultimately got their foundation drains corrected. So now we've started this other program to look just at the sump pumps, because those houses, the foundation drains weren't inspected, because we did it part of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, so we did the sump pump only. So we're a little bit between. It technically already should have been corrected based on the schedule that we had in the previous council direction. So it's kind of a little bit of a gray area here where we're now into a different program looking for different things. So
We'll do it, but like I say, we didn't know that there was a difference between, a sump pump.
The difference didn't...
Well, I see it now.
After the fact that the sump pump, the lateral failure was supposed to be corrected before the sump pump program even started, so confusion can't be after the fact. It's confusion after we've already failed to make the the, fix within, almost like a couple of years. I can't remember the exact, I'd have to look at the exact date, so.
Dave, were you given a letter or something from the city when we were having the street work done that the lateral drain or the
Yeah.
foundation drain was
Yeah.
not proper?
Yes.
Okay.
But then when they did these sump inspections, they said you're in compliance. And I don't know the difference.
So depending when you get your sump pump, you've only not known the difference or not had this confusion since the sump pump inspection was completed. I don't know when your neighborhood was completed, but.
When did you get the letter that the lateral wasn't in compliance?
I honestly don't remember.
Do you still have it?
I doubt it. I don't know. I just found out tonight about this, so it's kinda like, I wasn't prepared for any of this.
Do we have those letters on file still, the ones that were sent?
Got the file right here. The first one was in 2018. He received another one in 2019. 2020 was COVID, we didn't do anything, and then he received another letter, I have a copy here of in 2021.
What does it say?
They all said the same.
Why don't you just read it, Linda? That'd make it easier.
I think the gist is that you're non-compliant, you need
Or
to get within
Long letter.
compliance.
we'll just pass it down to you. You can
Okay.
take a look at it.
Those are the three.
So you were aware that you were not compliant on the
We were-
drain?
Yeah, we were planning on getting it done, and then they came out with these, and then they came in and said, you're in compliance, you don't need to do anything else.
When did...
I got a letter on that, but that's it. I didn't, having not known this was gonna happen tonight, I would have
Do you
brought
know the
it.
date when they came for your sub pump?
No.
It was in the summer?
Sometime,
I can't remember, because yours and mine would have been probably around the same
Yes.
time.
We're just looking at how far apart were the initial letter for the drain versus when was your pump said that that was fine in compliance. If you had it
I
in
didn't
your
know the
window.
difference. I mean, it's all sump.
Well, I'm just saying if one letter said drain is not in compliance and you had a year to 2 years between that and then the compliance of the sub pump, you still would have fixed your drain in between those 2 years knowing that that was that was the issue.
Well, because I sort of kind of remember this, because we had, the original letters said fix it, and it was during the winter that those letters went out. And so we ended up giving people extensions, because I remember saying at the time, people can't do this now that it's wintertime. So, if you look at these letters, the first one from 2018 says you have to do it by November 1st. The second one says you have to do it by December 30th. And then the newest one from March this past year said June 30th. So when was because we did tell people it's wintertime, I remember that. Mm-hmm.
But the first date started, the
Yep.
actual date started on that first date.
Yep.
Which was the 1 year to fix it.
Yep.
So, yes, reminders letters were sent along the way, but that date didn't change, period, That was still the 1 year to complete it. It was the way it actually...
Do you want to
enforcing.
see them?
No, I
I don't have it when the sump pumps in. I can get it, I just don't have it available tonight.
Okay.
we'll get it done, but
Yeah.
now that I know what, I play dumb, because I didn't know. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not trying to,
No, I don't think any of us think you're trying to pull one over, Dave.
okay.
Just to understand where we're coming from when we had this on the agenda, is we've tried to put teeth in this, because it's a problem, it's a big problem in the city with the flooding and that, and the backup of the sewers, having the stormwater go into the sewers, so that's why
Mm-hmm.
we've kinda did different steps and different letters to get that word out there. I mean, I don't know what's council interested in doing, I mean,
I'm just curious, just reading this, we were supposed to start penalizing them as of June of 2021.
No, it'd be 2008, I don't know what the initial letter says, but
But it,
it was like 2008, 2009 was their, after their year was up to get their...
18, 19.
Yeah, 18, 19 to get their projects fixed. You were in the second year, right?
Yeah, I remember
So it would have
that.
probably been, 19 would have been the actual date that the $100 per month should have been charged, or could have been charged. so.
okay.
Because we came until November 1st of 2018.
And that was a year after they were notified that they were non-compliant.
Did you try to schedule this in 2018 when you were told you were non-compliant?
I don't remember what, something happened where we didn't, and I don't know why. I mean, sorry, it's, you know.
I'm just trying to gather information to make a
Yeah.
informed
Yeah.
decision and a fair...
All I'm asking is that we defer this till we can, I mean, I can't do it in January and February, I don't even know if we can do it in March.
So is this something we know is deficient, or just has to be checked to see if it's deficient?
No, it's a non-compliant.
It's non-compliant, okay. So work is gonna have to be done, excavation work is gonna have to be done.
My understanding, it might not be excavation work, but yes,
Okay.
there's gonna have to be a correction.
What are the alternatives to excavation if it's not?
I'm not positive, I'm not sure what Dave's non-compliant is, that's why I don't know how to answer that.
Well, we don't have an actual sump pump, it's a, kind of a gravity thing that was built into the house, it's in the middle of
There's
the,
different options how to fix that, so, without knowing what his plan is, I don't know what his...
I don't know what, you know, if there's more than one way to do it versus digging the hole, putting that, I really don't know.
Is it a situation where that we could offer Dave the opportunity to get someone in there in the next 2 weeks, if that works in your, if you guys are around?
Yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Give him his options, and if it's an option where it can be fixed without excavation, if that is the option that is most feasible and chosen, that as long as we have, you know, a letter saying, I did the inspection, these are the options, just so that he can show us that it's on the schedule, it's coming, it's getting done.
I don't have any problem with that, but again, it's the council...
Yeah.
Had a program to set the deadline, so we're trying to...
And I-
deadlines.
I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I can go with that too. I can't read that.
Are people currently getting charged that $100?
Nope,
This was the start.
it'd be five properties are what the only ones that are on there that just are,
Clarify a little bit. No is part of the third, fourth, and fifth project, yes is part of our sump pump
right,
That's
inspection.
a separate project.
yep.
Yep.
Yeah, these five that are on here tonight were from the third, fourth, and fifth project. It's down on the engineer's report there.
Just playing catch-up.
Yep. I can support that, Mel. If you get back to us next 2 weeks with a plan of, you know, who can do it and get something scheduled and let us know, we can work with that.
Yeah.
'Cause again, we're not trying to just do this to be
But-
punitive to make money on it. It's
Yeah,
more
and
of
I'm
just-
not trying to do it because I thought we were
Right.
compliant, but...
But I mean, if you could bring us a letter from whoever's doing the, you know, you're coming in to do the estimates and all that stuff, so that we've got a paper trail.
Okay.
Is this gonna mean anything to me?
I appreciate that you're one of the five that did come to talk about it, so
Well,
you're addressing the matter, which is good.
I found out tonight on this.
Yeah, oh,
It's
yeah.
like, Brandon came by and goes, you're on the I go, what?
So-
So, it's totally,
Put that on the agenda for the 26th.
Yep, yeah, we'll just revisit it at the next meeting if you could just get something together.
okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, on to E1, the annexation of 16th Street right-of-way.
Before we move on, Chris?
Yep.
Sorry. Were we gonna do anything with the other 4 properties that are on this
It's
list?
actually under the engineer's report.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yep, we can talk about down there.
Sorry.
Thank you, yep, no, that's good. So the annexation of the 16th Street right-of-way, which is E1. That's in your packet, there's 3 resolutions there on the
So this
plan.
is relatively straightforward, Mr. Mayor. You've got the joint resolution, which was approved by the township at their meeting at the beginning of this month. This is for us for the, basically to bring the 16th Street corridor into the city limits, kind of like we did with 16th Street Northeast, going to the east. So very similar to that. And I don't know, Brandon, if you've got anything, otherwise you can see the, kind of what's in the packet there, so.
And then in the engineering report, we do have the geometric layout for the roundabout forward, so it's just kind of pulling all that together. That is gonna have to be in the city limits for us to utilize our funding that we're looking for it, so.
Okay. Any questions on this? This is the value of having that orderly annexation agreement with Maryville Township to where it's, somebody wants to bring property in, it's pretty easy to do, so. I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to open up public hearing if anybody has any comments on bringing that right-of-way in to the city. I'll close the public hearing. Entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Ryan. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, state aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. On to F1. Approve hours and wages and fees for the 2022 season for the Aquatic Center. Did that disappear from my packet?
I don't see it in here.
It's under G.
Oh, G1.
Oh, okay.
We've got,
It's part of the
No.
overall fee
It's
schedule.
part of the overall fee
Yeah,
schedule.
I think that was
So we'll
broken
just,
out because they just wanted to highlight that those were set at the Park and Rec meeting at the last month.
okay, so we
Kind
don't,
of a report from the committee.
okay, so that's just gonna be, okay, we'll actually have it in the fee schedule.
That's right. If
Okay.
you want to just review it then.
Got it. We'll just add it to that then. All right, number 2, Shooty Property Concept Plan. That is in your packet.
Yes, and that is something that was just updated. I got an updated copy earlier this week from the engineer related to that, and it should be under F2 in your Dropbox as well. So I think Mr. Schuette's here. I don't know, sir, if you'd like to address it at all, or if you have anything you'd like to tell the council before that, before they start their review.
I think we've laid out everything that we need to. I guess I'm here to answer any questions if they have questions, but otherwise I think it speaks for itself.
Sure. I know that when we had discussed this earlier, the zoning is an issue here too. We'll be looking at changing the zoning. Mr. Schuette's looking at some different zoning options, potentially residential, single-family, or some sort of residential in the west, maybe a mixed-use kind of use in the middle. And then, I think his preference right now is for commercial of some sort on the eastern, sort of third of the property. So that isn't something that we would deal with until that rezone request comes in, so.
As far as access to Highway 57, is that a state issue? I mean, is that gonna be, are we gonna have much, to be able to work with Mr. Schuette on that to do, or is it basically the
You
state?
know, I know that the
state has to
MnDOT
say yes or-
does have access controls that they have, requirements, and I don't know, Brandon, you can probably speak to those more clearly than I can.
Yeah, so ultimately, it is MnDOT's roadway. They will dictate their access locations there and what potential, their locations and what that may or may not be. With that said, I have been working with MnDOT with some of the details kind of behind the scenes with respect to when that roundabout's being placed. The speed limit may change through there, so that may change some of their opinions on where the locations are. So that ultimately is kind of out of the city's hands, other than from a technical engineering side. So kind of my opinion of the review is, whatever MnDOT allows them, Mr. Schuette's gonna have to work with, and then we'll work with, the internal layouts of the roads, because it's not quite as critical with the local roadway system, so I don't
Sure.
see any.
Well, I was just seeing the 13th and 15th were stubbed on his
Yeah,
plan, and I was like, well, from my
probably
experience with the
not
state, is they aren't really,
15th's probably too close to the splitter on that south leg of the roundabout. 13th and 12th are being proposed by the developer. I don't think MnDOT likes 12th, they wanna move it down to 11th, where we have that existing road. The problem, we don't own the
Goes right
property to the
through,
west, so.
right.
That's I think gonna be the discussion from MnDOT is, if it's 12th and 13th, or if it's just 13th and some other partial access at 12th, but.
I've opened that conversation with MnDOT, and we're willing to forego 15th. That's off the table, that won't
Okay.
be part of it. We want to keep 13th, which we're in agreement on that. 12th Street, we think makes more sense than 11th Street, and that's a conversation that we are having with MnDOT right now.
Okay. Okay.
But we'll abide by whatever MnDOT wants to do.
Yeah.
From my engineering standpoint, I don't have an objection to 12th, so if the city doesn't object to it, MnDOT will somewhat consider that, but at the end of the day, it's still MnDOT's discussion, so.
Sure.
Right, and we're aware of that.
12th makes much
I
more
think-
sense than 11th to split those two properties that we don't.
You own or have access to, yeah.
Yep.
So with that said, we did notify MnDOT that speed limit may be changing, which in turn would change the spacing access, so we've kind of done all we can do to kind of support Mr. Schuette in his application.
Sure.
so.
And I'd be in favor of the lower speed limit there as well.
Been asking for that for years.
What we envision is from the roundabout to the south will continue to be 30, all the way through town, and then the roundabout to north, I think it's 50 now.
50.
Will maintain to be 50 going to the north, and then 16th Street will be ultimately 30, like it is now, going to the west, so.
Okay.
It'll have a feel of a little heavier, more speeding to the west, if it is signed 30, that's kind of our vision, so we'll see what happens there.
And as far as drainage and flood control, the ponding and all that, that's all
We had that addressed in our plan.
satisfactory, everything's,
Probably not the level that we get into that.
Okay.
So again, lot layout, does the zoning fit, access fit, does it kind of work with our land use plan, that's kind of the level we're at. They show us some stormwater ponds on here, that's what we'll review as they come in with the preliminary plat. We'll start getting into those details, and that'll be their responsibility to meet our ordinances, so we'll review it in more detail at that point, so. They just haven't got to that point of sizing everything.
okay. No, I think this is awesome, if we can keep going ahead and get everything moving forward. That's fantastic, if we get some development in that area.
So on that 15th Street, were you thinking then just to bring that, to cut it off and just have like a sub-road there, or you just?
We'll probably bring 13th in and do some sort of a meandering road to get
Okay.
back over to where 15th was.
So there's access then? Okay,
Okay.
all right,
To be determined.
sure.
Depending on who and what and...
Commercial development is really tough to get accesses, and how is everything going there, how big are the sites and whatnot,
Depends on what,
so.
who wants to develop. and-
Yeah, I think it'll just kind of grow as development occurs. Commercial is different than residential, so they got kind of their work cut out for them on how the access all works and what the end users are, so.
No, I like the plan. I think it's a great corridor for commercial along 57 there, and then residential and all that, so I don't have any problems with it.
Looks good.
Any comments, Mel, Ryan? Any comments, Dwayne?
No, we briefly discussed this at the last planning and zoning, so all the discussion is consistent
Okay,
with that.
perfect. Anything else, Tim?
No, I think that's what we wanted to get some feedback, and Dean, is there any questions you have for the council, or otherwise it sounds like we're kind of waiting on MnDOT to see what they say for accesses, and then...
Right, waiting on that conversation, and I guess, I'm kind of waiting for a conversation from MnDOT as far as right-of-way that they need for the roundabout, and also from you folks as City of Casson, as far as the 16th Street corridor that is on my property.
We got that coming up a little bit later on the engineer's report.
Yeah, we're looking at that geometric, to look at the roundabout and the legs. Then we've got Excel Energy, because we're gonna be potentially incurring a fair amount of cost to move those power lines, located at that intersection. And then as Mr. Shooter alluded to, the roundabout and also that leg, we got that 80-foot corridor from the county just south of the dump. That is ultimately on his property, so that's part of, an agreement that Tim and I are working on to put together a potential petition waiver, with the donation of that right-of-way to get this roundabout and road built in there. With the idea that there is some benefit to Mr. Shooty by we're building a road, yes, on his property, but also providing access there, and if you're a commercial activity, having access in a heavily traveled road of 16th Street, that there's gonna be some benefit there. And what does that look like through a potential, cost recovery on the city side of building 16th Street, ultimately kind of for the developer. We could pull back and just say, Mr. Shooty, build whatever 16th Street you like, but knowing that that's more of a regional road, we have some funding opportunities in place, so we kind of want to work both sides of that. In addition to that, there's been some talk of development on the north side of the road there, and staff has reached out to some development there too about potentially recovering some costs for 16th Street, but probably too premature to get into those details, so.
Okay.
With the idea that, city's gonna have some costs here, but can we recover some? Because there's some benefit to those properties, so.
Perfect.
Plus, Mr. Shooty's giving up right-of-way, which has value to it too, so it's working those through, but a road is a little more valuable than the actual raw land cost, so.
Sure, okay.
We'll work at that through, so it'll be to the council at a later date.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. All right, we'll move on, we'll get to the roundabout stuff in the engineer's report. So, old business, the fee schedule. Any questions on the fee schedule? It's redlined for everybody.
Just one question. You had moved F, we said we're moving that into the fee schedule, but F has hours and wages. That's not on the fee schedule, I just
It's
was...
in the park board minutes,
Park board minutes?
in your Dropbox.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure.
She left them in the park for a minute.
Which number is that one?
A2.
I mean, the basic takeaway for everyone on that is that wages are going up.
Right.
You know, the park board reviewed the aquatic center, financial performance last year was very good. It did well, we had a good summer, a lot of usage, we have some really good guards, we have some issues with retaining staff, and that's been an issue, nationwide, really. So, in order to remain competitive, they are recommending wage increases for the part-time staff, especially the WSI qualified, lifeguards, because they're, the ones that do the lessons, which is one of the revenue generators for the aquatic center. So, I think in some cases, we're looking at 10% increases to the base wage for those, the line items. And I don't know if you wanted to talk a little about that, Ryan?
Yeah, so in our park board meeting, Ronnie talked a lot about how we didn't want to raise costs, so in redesigning the times for some of our aquatic facility events, the plan was to allow for lifeguards to be there more consistently, which would require us to hire a few less lifeguards, is my understanding. So that would save us money. It wouldn't cost us, wouldn't cost any more than what was budgeted for the previous year. So it's still under the same budget, even with the increases in salary, because it adjusts the when those lifeguards are there and how long they're there per day. So it came in at that budget line that Ronnie had previously had for the previous year, and I don't see that within this. We had it in I thought we had it in there. We had a couple other things. I don't see it in here right now. But that was addressed in there, because that was one of the concerns, was, well, if you raise rates, where's that gonna come from? And it was the same budgeted total, I believe, as the previous year, just the way they rearranged the pool schedule allowed for that.
Thanks, Ryan.
And we've had a hard time getting WSIs. Those are those lifeguards that teach our swimming lessons, and that we know that's a big piece of also bringing in more lifeguards in the future. If we don't train kids how to swim, we might not see that influx of lifeguards later on. That's how we've cycled through over the last 30, 40 years of lifeguards. And then you'll see that the managers change. We'll have a new manager. An assistant manager is a position that they want to have so that you can train someone in. Abby, I believe, Trosis is a one-year plan as the manager, so training an assistant in would help bridge that gap so that we have a staff member that would possibly be ready to fit that role the next year.
Well, part of the lifeguard and WSI, some people have brought it to my attention, is they pay up front for the training to become that.
Mm-hmm.
But they said it takes months before they get paid back. So there's some people that don't want to do that, because if they get two people in the family, it's up to $600 out of pocket.
Okay.
So that's something the city could look at. If we pay the training for them, but then if they don't work, they gotta pay it back. So that's just something you could bring up to the park.
Do we
For-
reimburse it now?
We do, but it could take months before they get paid back.
They get reimbursed at the end of this, after they've worked the season,
Which kind of,
which is 3 months.
yeah.
But for some kids,
No, I get that is a big expense.
so then, you know, if we have them signing a contract saying you're gonna work the whole season,
Or pay half in
Or something.
half in mid-July.
we could get more,
Yeah.
because there was some that were looking at expense as like, well, that's a big expense up front, I can go work somewhere else and not have that expense up front. It was just brought to my attention, so I just wanted to bring it up.
And I know Ronnie was looking at other ways to get our lifeguards trained as WSI, so partnering with other aquatic centers throughout the southeastern community and see if there could be a different location, a different time for training.
Sure.
So I know those interviews were
I
taking
think we're
place in
looking at,
December.
we're looking at Owatonna, actually, because they've got the indoor aquatic center, so we can do the training in the wintertime cycle, so that has been an issue, is a lot of folks have had to drive up to the cities, which
Yep.
for a young teenager can also be an issue with parents and things like that, so.
And,
I think
and
that's a good
granted,
point.
some of the parents are paying
Right.
that expense up front, but some aren't, so.
So we wanted to retain staff, promote lifeguards from within, and so that's why you see some of those rate increases as well for pay, for them to justify them taking a job as a lifeguard and not making $15 a Burger King or $18 at Culver's. This gets them to want to stay and work that full shift, so.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan, appreciate it. Any questions on the whole fee schedule? We'll just lump all that together when we approve it. But, everything was redlined, there were things that increased there, but that was, all makes sense. Okay, entertain a motion to approve the fee schedule, including the Aquatic Center wages.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Mel. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Dan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Parks Master Plan, G2.
All right, this is an item that the council's reviewed earlier this fall, and now we've kind of brought back the final master plan development from the folks at Hoyes and St. Coigler, basically taking into account the feedback that the council had. They approved the more thorough, probably, program of operations for this park, for Lions Park. You can kind of see some things did shift in the final plan. There was some feedback about the southwest area with water potentially causing a problem, and also the number of ball fields. There was a thought that it might be premature to plan on a fourplex because of the use. So you do see this has been brought down to a twoplex with the potential for a third if it was warranted. So just wanted to bring that to you. It's just for your final feedback, and then this will become part of our comp plan, become part of our, schedule of programming for our, projects as we go forward. One thing that's gonna be happening this year is, Brandon's working on parking lot, projects for the library and for, Lions Park, as well as we'll be working with the electric department to do some lighting for that. So that's the first phase, really, would be to get that parking lot paved, and then also pave and access, kind of by 2 minutes access, I think is what we're thinking right now, instead of doing a sidewalk, but it'll be sort of a trail coming in that make this into an more ADA compliant, park. So that's kind of where it's at.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that? It just goes into our comp plan for guiding future development. Okay. Administrator's report.
All right, let's see. Couple of good things. A couple of extra things I'm gonna throw in there too, that we had a meeting that's not in the packet. I had a meeting today to talk about, or actually yesterday, to talk about a changeover in our phone system. CamTel has let us know that the current phone system we have, which is somewhat antiquated, is their support's no longer gonna be in place in terms of the parts and that sort of thing. So we're looking at updating a system. It's actually something they gave you as a reference, Mr. Mayor, because you adopted this sort of system, I guess, in the last couple of years, maybe 2 years ago. So the police department's leading the way as usual. They did it last year. So we're going to be just following in their footsteps, I guess. Everyone gets a little jealous of the PD. So, but it's a good system from what I've been told. Josh, have you got any feedback on it?
Yeah, it's worked great.
Yeah. And our goal is to improve our quality of service for our customers, for our residents. So this will help guide them to where they need to call. One issue we've run into in the past is with emergency calls for the electric department during outages, is folks tend to get confused. They call utility billing at City Hall, or they call one of the other departments, and this will help guide them to the emergency number a little bit more directly. Other than that, you've got a memo in there based on the redistricting that Dodge County is going to be undergoing. They're looking at some substantial changes. I'm hoping that they'll be consulting with Linda here. They haven't really been talking to her as much as we'd like, but we know that the lines are going to be changing for the commissioner districts substantially. Then we've got some EDA items to talk about tonight, so I won't go into those. One thing I did want to highlight is that we have had a few hiccups with the Ferguson water meter replacement program. There were about 800 meters that were scheduled, and I kind of laid out what we had. There were some issues in the South Fork area especially, where those were all supposed to be done as one large batch, and some of those folks did get mailings that they weren't supposed to get. So certainly we're not trying to confuse anyone, but it sounds like things are going a little smoother this last couple of weeks, and this Cody Ricks is their project manager, and his number's there. So if you have questions from residents at any time, you certainly can just forward them on to him. And I think they're about 50% of the way through now. I think they have about 400 meters installed. So a lot of them are going to come when they do South Fork as a big chunk. And then there's another issue that may have been talked about before. It's this CRC implementation. It's basically a support services for electric utilities, where if someone calls during the off-peak hours, they reach a live caller person as opposed to just reaching a voicemail. And I know, it's been brought to my attention that it may have been brought up in the past, and the council may have said they didn't feel it was warranted. So we are taking another look at this, just because we want to try to, as I said, improve that customer service, and also the fact that the Dodge County Emergency Dispatch has complained at times that they're overwhelmed with the calls from folks, so we want to try and eliminate that. So, something we're taking a look at. I just wanted to highlight, there are some meetings coming up for the Manorville project. They've got that coming up later this month for the Manorville section in 2024. The Highway 57 is going to be rebuilt, so that's coming up. And then also the PUC is going to be hosting, the Public Utilities Commission is hosting a Byron Solar Project meeting on the January 25th, so that's also coming up. I'm part of the task force for the Byron Solar Project, because each city has to have a representative, and apparently you can't have anyone except for a staff person from the city. So it seems a little bit like a losing battle, to be honest. Not that I'm necessarily opposed to the project, but it sort of seems like a fait accompli already. But we're certainly bringing a lot of our feedback to them. I know the township had some strong pushback, and the county had some things. It's such a huge project. It's 1,800 acres, and it definitely will impact the city's growth to the southeast, because it's going to be, within a half mile of city limits to the southeast. So definitely some things coming along there. I think those are the bulk of the things I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Tim? Okay, thanks, Tim, appreciate it.
You bet.
Engineers report, most exciting time of the night.
Appreciate it. 4 quick ones, or we'll try to make them quick anyway. The first one is a council action sheet for 3rd, 4th, and 5th project update with regards to starting the monthly penalty. So as Mr. Doubles mentioned earlier, some confusion on his side of things, or some confusion about the project. So ultimately, we're trying to notify or get some direction from the council that we are looking at moving forward with that monthly penalty, but obviously take any questions or directions that you may have on moving that forward. It's been an outstanding item. Just want to clarify things that trying to put that project to bed. So
is everybody going to be getting a letter with this saying, hey, the $100 is going on?
That's right.
Okay.
You may have a problem with one of these properties, if I'm not mistaken, it recently sold.
Say it's
301 4th Avenue Northwest, yes.
Okay. That would be the only thing, is this person obviously had no prior knowledge,
Right.
so.
Should have been disclosed when they bought the house, but has not.
I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, but we are aware that that's a new owner, so.
Okay.
the other thing to think about on the other program, the sump pump program, people that were giving notices if they immediately scheduled, we were looking at some of the properties there have gone back and refunded their $100 surcharge. That's something that we could consider here, is if we institute the surcharge and then actions are taken or scheduled, it's completed in a timely manner, that's something the council could consider. The reason why we ultimately did that on the other project was our goal wasn't to charge people $100 a month, it was to fix the problem. So if that was the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, we will, with respect to getting it fixed, and we thought, well, if they're fixing it, we'll defer the 1 month surcharge. So staff has already kind of been doing that, or set that kind of precedence, if you will, on that other project. So we've had pretty good success for it. I think we're down to not many properties that need to be inspected, so, or fixed up for that matter. So it's been a good program in that sense. So it could be something for the council to consider.
Yeah, I think just to be consistent, if those letters go out after we approve this tonight, we're giving Mr. Doubles the 2 weeks to come back and tell us. We'll give them the same courtesy, and then we'll decide at the next meeting. If they can come back and let us know, hey, you're getting it fixed, who's fixing it, what's the schedule?
Would you like that in the letter, that they have the opportunity to come to?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we'll add that in, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, just tell me, because maybe the one property did change hands. I don't
There's
think.
another one on there that changed hands, I think, in
Yeah, so,
20...
again, it's not to be punitive to collect the $100, it's, we just want to
We just want the project done.
We don't want the stormwater in the sewer, so.
Agree.
Okay, thank you, is that good on that then?
Actually, if you just would accept this list, then
Okay.
we'll move forward with that.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the lists.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Ryan, do I have a second?
One second.
Thanks, Mel, all in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries, thank you.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. I think he was on mute, he was talking.
Second item tonight, 16th Street Roundabout Geometric, and that's going to lead into number 3, relocation of Excel power poles. So sticking with number 2 there, in your council packet, should look familiar, we had something very similar with Highway 57, which is what MnDOT calls a geometric layout, and that essentially just lays out the pavement is in yellow there, the red is kind of a splitter island, purple is a trail system, And that basically just lays out the proposed improvements. That's reviewed by MnDOT. We ultimately get approval of this, and then move on to final plans with the plan to start construction next year on this roundabout. So that's just more of an FYI tonight that's moving forward. It will look ultimately a little different by the time you have many different groups within MnDOT review the projects. They change slightly, but this is a lot more straightforward with respect to roundabout geometrics and the other ones we built on, or proposing to build here on Highway 57, or in the process of building. So more of an FYI on that project. It's moving forward. Any questions on it before I jump onto the Excel power lines? Perfect.
Not right now, no, go ahead.
So jumping on to number 3 there, you can see there is a document that is from Excel Energy there. We've been working with them on relocating their power lines. When we ultimately first met with them, this was going to be a $200,000 relocation was the budget number that they gave us. As we worked things through at the kind of 11th hour, as we opened up the agreement, all of a sudden it was $600,000. So prodded Excel on that a little bit. They said, well, that's just the cost as we got into it. Did talk to the DOT about, hey, we widen our right-of-way here by putting a roundabout in, and they're in an easement, do we typically pay? And they said yes. So that's a cost for the project that we're looking at incurring here. I did talk to the DOT through our municipal state aid funds that we receive every year, about $200,000 that we're going to utilize for this project. This relocation could potentially be eligible to reimburse through that program. So that's something that I will be, if we're moving forward, that's something I'll be looking at doing. So that's the agreement before you. Again, we were expecting about $200,000. That number's jumped up, so not sure what we want to discuss. I don't know that we have much choice if we're going to do the project to
Well, I think
relocate
that's
these
kind of what our
power
gist of our
poles.
discussion was going to be, the options the council has, Brandon, I think, and...
I don't know that we have a lot of options. I mean, it's...
Well,
Well, one option would be to not do the roundabout, which
Right.
we want to do that.
I don't think that's an option. They kinda have us over a barrel, right? They know we need to get this in for access, for development, and the intersection. We've been asking to do something there for
Yep. And we've
dozens of years.
We've concurred a fair amount of money on our end to get
Right.
things lined up.
We bought the property,
Yep.
So my question though is this $601,000 to just move the stuff and it's the like stuff being put back in, or are we paying for improvements from them that they were gonna do in the next 5 years anyway, because those poles are 30 years old. They're cracked, they're leaning, they're gonna replace this anyway, because I talked to another large public utility in the area who would build me a mile of brand-new stuff for $220,000.
So this is to relocate the poles and the existing...
5
pole.
poles.
That's 6, but...
6 poles.
Yep.
And we can build a whole mile for $220. So we're paying $186,000 for just the engineering to move 6 poles. That's $30,000. Nothing against engineers and their fee, that's $30,000 a pole just to think about where to put it. So they're basically holding us over a barrel, and they know it.
Again, we went in, 200,000 was the estimate.
Wish the wind would've blew harder.
What's that?
Wish the wind would've blew harder. So when they move this, they're gonna have to get a permit to do all their work, right? From the
Yeah.
city, are they in the city limits at all?
Not yet. Yeah, we ran into that issue. There's no way to really charge them. The state statute protects them pretty handily, so...
Because the permit to move power poles just went up.
They're in an easement in this part of the project, including like Mr. Schudy's property, we're gonna acquire right away, well, they're in an existing easement. And we, Tim did direct me to look at, well, do we shift the roundabout to the south and west and change some things? We even looked at, well, we go back to a stoplight, and it just isn't gonna work. We're just
No.
gonna incur redoing the highway, to move things around. So we're kinda stuck between, if this is where the roundabout's going, this is the council direction, or a cost that, we didn't quite was expecting it to be this much, but here we are. Couple other things that, to think about, you know, this is gonna ultimately eat into our MSAS budget. We only have so much money in that bank, which it has, about $1.5 million. We're looking at borrowing ahead about another $1 million. That is money that we're gonna borrow ahead, so as that money comes in, it's gonna go right back out, because you already spent it on this project and running 16th Street to the west. So that ultimately, we may not be able to build this road, have enough money to build it all the way, across to the dump road, or Dodge County 15, or 21, excuse me. So that's something to think about. We are looking at, maybe we defer 16th Street. Again, we can build the roundabout kind of as you see in your geometric layout in yellow, and then that greenish kind of line, we defer that for a year or two, and let our MSAS funds build up some more. We could look at doing that, because that money is gonna be kind of coming in every year. and then see how Mr. Shooty or, the other development on the other side of the road come in, and then we can just do a short section of roadway, something that we've kind of thought through at staff level, or with the roundabout, we build a short section of it. I think things might be a little easier just to build the roundabout and just wait for 16th Street. In addition to that, or something else to think about, is funding. We've chased some funding for 16th Street going east, and we're successful. We did chase funding for 16th Street going west here, this project, and we're unsuccessful. I'm thinking that if we have a roundabout built and have it stubbed there, might make that application a little more attractive for the MnDOT groups that review those. Unfortunately, that it might be years out before that money is actually in there. But that might buy us some more time, because I'm not sure that we need that stub of 16th Street west next year. It might be the year after, if things develop on the north side of the road. So that's kind of my thinking right now.
So-
Leave kind of some options open, because, again, we're gonna have that cost. It's gonna eat into our MSAS funds. I think we can ultimately get it funded through MSAS funds, but it won't be a, necessarily a capital outlay potentially from the city. With utilities, if I can make everything go with our municipal state aid funds, but we're gonna run out of those funds essentially, because we're paying to relocate power poles as opposed to build road going to the west.
Brandon, Nancy was just showing me in our budget we had budgeted $300,000 out of the electric fund for that roundabout.
Yep.
Not the 200, we've been using
So-
300.
So that was another staff direction, was we were budgeting that out of the electric funds. That may or may not still be in play.
So-
It's something that we can talk about as we
Right.
move things.
I mean, that helps, but,
Well, right, that was always part of the plan, though. So the 600,000, the 300,000 should have covered that whole
yeah.
Yeah.
contribution from the electric department, so now you're looking at additional,
Another three-
potentially
I was
300,000.
just clarifying that it wasn't 200, it was 300 that we...
But we thought it was gonna be 200 up front, give or take.
So we've got the $1.5 million in MSAS and the $1 million that we're borrowed from ahead. So it's 2.5. And that's going toward the roundabout, and possibly moving these poles, put some of it.
Poles and running 16th Street to the west, continuing that to the west.
So if we stub it, like you're saying, and not do all the way to the west to the dump road or County Road 21, whatever you call it, the cost from going from where we would stub it to County Road 21, $400,000?
Probably more than that, but.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to get costs there. I mean, so my question was gonna be, if this is moving electric, I mean, if our electric fund is plenty of reserves, could we allocate more from that to pay for the poles and still get the, because it would be less expensive in the long run to put this road all the way in at one time
Mhm.
versus stubbing and waiting 5 years, because the cost is gonna be higher. And we don't know if we'll get that grant or the program you're talking about, and where's it gonna come from in the
Yeah.
future? Because Excel's really kinda, I'm just saying, it's $300,000 difference. If we couldn't build the road from the stub to County Road 21 anyway, where was it gonna come from before?
I don't quite understand your last
Okay,
comment
so
here.
if it's gonna cost us $400,000 more than we thought,
Right.
and it costs more to put the road in all the way across, where was that money gonna come, where was the more than $400,000 gonna come from before? If we're $400,000 short of putting the whole road in over all the way, we can't build that road for $400,000, what's the total cost?
I think we were looking like we were gonna be about $1 million short if we
Right.
could build the whole thing across when we
Right.
sat that down that day.
Okay.
So for $1 million short.
So we would've been 600 short before, 'cause this is only a
Dropped out about $1 million, depending on how things would work out. The other thing we have in play is we have this $900,000 grant for the roundabout that has to be done next year.
Right.
So at a minimum, unless we're ready to walk away from that, and that's gonna have some
No.
issues with MnDOT, I don't think we wanna
No,
walk away
no,
from that
no.
900,000. That is the roundabout itself. We can build that and stub that road and stop, take a deep breath, and then see our MSAS funds, how much is remaining, and then do that project later if we delay that a couple of years, depending on, again, development and getting that road stubbed through there. We can look at deferring some of that cost. That's kind of my inkling, is deferring it to your point. Yes, the cost is always gonna go up, and at a peak, I can't imagine we can sustain this sort of inflation rate, so
No, and I
see
get
things
the-
slowing back down. And
Right.
if it's 3 years from now that we're building there and we need that road, that's gonna be a simple road, it's not gonna have this complexity, so we could turn around, to build that at a later date pretty quickly. So I don't think we would, if we just built the roundabout with a little stub there, I don't think we're gonna stymie any development there. We can recover from that and figure it out.
That was my thing, is are we gonna put a wrench in some of the development if we don't put the road through.
I don't think so. Mr. Schudy's here, I think he's gonna start on the south side, the development in the northwest corner, if that continues to move forward, I think we can accommodate them, or we would accommodate them if that's redeveloped there.
Part of the issue is, of course, that western section is the section, there's no assessment possibility either, because you have county property on both sides. And so there's no ability to,
100% city
they're not
costs.
gonna, we're not gonna
No.
recoup anything from the property
No.
owner there, because even though it has value, they're not gonna be recoupable.
Right.
So that's kind of where we see that as a valuable section to be added on, but we wanna build as much as we can with the money we have and not, go really blow the budget together.
Oh, no, I get that, and we don't have to do it because everything's gonna always cost more, and it's not why you make it bigger or longer, just because of that, but my whole thing was I was trying to figure out how much we're short, because if we had planned on doing the whole thing, and now this issue comes in, and that $400,000 more says, oh, now we can't do it, well, we were already short,
Sure.
if that's the case.
We were already short, yes.
Okay, that was my whole point, if it's
We're just
only
getting more short.
$400,000 that we're short.
No, it's probably closer to $1 million.
Okay, all right.
Now, with that said, if you remember the LRIP funding, that's
Yep.
Local Road Improvement Board that we got 16th Street East, that comes in the fall time, you're notified, around that time that your funding is available that next year.
Okay,
So that's something to keep in mind, if we go after that funding for this west leg, again, we didn't get it this past year, because I think we got it for the east leg, so it's kinda hard to give the city of Casson another, $1 million. That, I think, could have a fair amount of money in it, because there's money coming down from the federal government to the DOT, that I think some of these programs could be
okay.
pretty, a healthy amount of them. So that's why I'm kinda thinking deferring that, going to the west, I'd hate to have that thing built, and then I also think that we have a funding opportunity that we could've got cost recovery.
Sure. Well, we need to do the roundabout. I mean, that's been on the, traffic control at that intersection's been a priority with everybody we've talked to for decades. So, I don't think, we can't let Excel stop us from doing that with their,
Excessive. Can,
blackmail, basically.
on Excel's scope, estimate of cost, when we do, is there any way that we can get a list of what they spent the money on? 'Cause
I don't know. I don't think
If we're
the
paying for it?
Commission has any
No, they don't care.
discussion on that, I don't know.
I mean, what I'll tell you from our negotiations with acquiring service territory from Excel, they will have a justification
No
for
matter
every
what.
cost.
Okay.
And, can you pick at that with your own lawyer?
But
Probably.
it ain't worth it, okay.
But in the long run, they're gonna go to the PUC and they're gonna say, we feel we can defend this and these are the reasons why. And, maybe you could get a small reduction, but I don't know that it's worth the time and the money that we would spend trying to litigate that, because that would be almost what it would.
It just seems like a lot of money to move 6 poles.
Yeah, but it does.
Well, you're paying for the,
Might be a stupid question, but can't you run under the road and not put any poles in?
we don't have any control over that.
It's Excel's line,
Excel's
it's not
line.
our line, electric line.
Okay, so if they say that they need to put poles in and be above ground instead of going below ground, you can't?
Transmission too, so I don't know if they wanna run that heavy of a transmission line underground.
They don't usually run transmission underground because of
We do have
access.
the underbuild on it, the smaller distribution below it, and they are gonna put that underground, that was.
Yeah, some of it's going underground, some of it's staying above, but yeah, we don't have any control over what they're doing. Wish we did, but,
Gentlemen, I have to leave, I got another meeting. Any questions anybody has?
no, it's good. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
All right.
Yep. Have a good night. All right, so I think we need to move forward with this. Is this something we need to take action on to say, okay, we're fine with being held over the barrel? and
Staff's
sign
gonna
it?
execute it unless directed otherwise.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that's the thing, is if you're comfortable, our goal tonight would be to direct staff to proceed with the roundabout, to finalize that, and as I said, we're gonna try and build as much of this as we can, and then go for other opportunities, whether it's an economic development grant, or it's a LRIP packet, to try and get the rest of the road built out to the west. I did have this discussion with the township, and I told them the same thing, is that it's not that we don't wanna build it all the way out, and they're very cognizant the costs are up, everything's up, and, I think in the fullness of time, it will get built. It's just a matter of, we have this year date to keep that grant money intact, and then, it may be that next year we're able to finish the road because we get a, LRIP funding or something like that. It may almost be seamless. It may almost seem like one project, but that was one question I had for you, Brandon, was what your timeline would be for this if the council decides to go forward with it.
We're proceeding with design and construction next year. I don't have a tighter timeline than that. In the schedule, this is gonna be by the time they move the poles, we'll be at a later date, so it'll probably be pushed into fall. by the time-
Because we know that you know, with the roundabout, we do wanna try and avoid as much interruption with the school as possible.
Well, 57 is gonna be closed at that time too, so I think it's probably more important. So, we're gonna be building this roundabout during school period, there's no way around that, we're not
Okay.
building it during the summer, so.
That'll definitely have a big impact, so.
Well, 57 will probably have a bigger impact for them, but yeah. But,
Okay.
Yeah, in addition to that, I mean, just to, I'll throw through it, tomorrow we have a staff meeting about safe routes to schools, another project that we have, you know, funding for that's gonna be moving forward, so we have that other, you know, we've budgeted some costs there, and I haven't quite got to final costs there, that's something we're gonna have to consider too, on where that project's gonna lie too. That's a, you know, $300,000 grant, but there was like another $150,000 of city cost that was factored in there too, so, just wanna throw that out there too, that's another project that we're tracking internally too on cost, 'cause we're in a tough spot. We quoted a lot of projects a couple of years ago and budgeted for them, and everything's gone up in those few years. So here we are, trying to do them all in a year with a lot of construction costs, so increase that we've seen in the last couple of years, so.
Yep. So you need action on the 6L thing, or just staff's gonna move forward?
You know, if you wanna take action, that's fine, otherwise, if there's no objections, we'll move forward at staff level.
I mean, we have to get this roundabout done, so.
Yeah, we have no choice.
We've got the $900,000 grant from the state, so, okay, thank you, proceed. Next.
All right, and then lastly, assessment policy for Highway 57. You know, we've talked about Highway 57 at length. We've talked about the geometric plans are in the MinDOT for ultimately bidding this spring as kind of final approval on our side of things. So one of the things we've talked, I think, kind of informally at council was special assessments for the project. We are reconstructing storm sewer, sanitary sewer, water main, including services to the properties along the corridor, and then obviously the roadway. Previous projects, for example, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we utilized special assessments. So looking for some direction from the council on proceeding with special assessments. As maybe most of the council, I don't know if you've done many special assessment projects, but it's an administrative heavy project and takes months to get done. We gotta have hearings and all that jazz, so we need to get started on that if we're gonna utilize special assessments. So I'm looking for some direction on that. In the council packet is the assessment policy that we kind of worked out or modified or tweaked, if you will, with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th project. I have some opinions that I'll probably take up with staff on tweaking that potentially on what we have or how we justify our special assessments based on our previous court hearings that we had on our other assessments. But that's some details that we'll work out if the direction is to move forward. My level of or my thought on the kind of amount would be pretty similar to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th project. Costs have gone up, but it's also a state highway, and things are kind of changing on that state highway, and they're participating on some of the road work. So those are details or decisions that the council can make at a later date after we proceed with the assessments, if that's the direction tonight. So maybe pause there. And
I think, just for consistency, it's a street reconstruction project, and we just had one of those. It should be similar to what it was for the last one as far as the procedure, you know, by the unit versus the square, or the linear footage of property, you know, by the unit. And then, just like it says in there, 30% paid by the benefiting property owner for street reconstruction, and then 0% for water, 0% for storms, 0% for sidewalks.
we may be tweaking that potentially just to justify the cost. We may still end up looking at capping it just due to the amount that could be there. One of the things I did want to look at is water and sewer service is homeowner's responsibility from the main to the property and replacing them as part of the project. So that is probably going to be a recommendation when we have the documents that you'll have to consider to ultimately make those decisions of calling that a assessed cost.
But that's already in place, right? The homeowner is already responsible from your house to the curb stop
So
anyway.
that's a direct cost of that homeowner. If they had a failure, they're
Right.
digging up the trunk highway. There's obviously a lot of cost from that.
Sure.
That'll help justify our cost when we do the special assessment, levy those against that benefiting property, because digging up a trunk highway is very expensive, so that's a big benefit to that property owner, because that is their direct responsibility. So that'll probably be in the recommendation of the document that you'll ultimately consider at the council level with the assessment role and the costs that we'll be looking at. Then we'll obviously have the assessment hearings as we move things forward. So just didn't want to jump into that, incur that cost, do that work if we didn't have council direction on those assessments, so.
Rest of the council, any feedback on that or objections or concur? I mean, it's a street reconstruction project. We just did one we need to be consistent going, with all of our projects, my opinion anyway.
Because we're gonna be doing more.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what we've done, so.
You're just gonna look at the size of the lot, if it's bigger, count it as...
Nope, it's a unit.
But I mean, each, you know, like in the last one, if it took up more than one standard lot, it counted as 2 units,
We did have some
Sure.
parcels that were more than one residential unit. For example, the old school site had multiple units.
Mhm.
So we'll be looking at that. In addition to that, we have a fair amount of commercial properties along the corridor, so that may have a little different assessment. So it's gonna be a little different assessment role, and how we ultimately come up with those amounts will be discussed probably at length at a little later council meeting.
As long as we make sure we're stating why we're doing it, how we're doing it when we get there, so we have answers because we will get questioned.
Yep, and we owe that to the citizens to answer those questions, so that's what we'll be doing.
So, okay, anything else? Nope, okay, thank you.
I think that's it. Like I said, we're meeting Safe Routes to School, meeting with the school and staff tomorrow, so that'll be a project that'll be before the council here, and that's for the trails and the pedestrian improvements kind of around the school, and a section of trail out on the 16th Street we talked about, so that's moving forward, so.
When you meet with the school, I would mention to them that, so that they know now that that 16th Street roundabout will be being constructed during school hours, or school
I'm
time.
pretty sure they're aware of that. In addition to that, there's a little corner there by their sign that we might need some right of way,
Sure.
so they're aware of that, so.
Okay, all right.
Yep, we're keeping that open line of communication, so.
Thank you very much. Okay, out of the attorney's report, we'll start with number 1, order for dismissal. It's in the packet, so that was, Mr. Redding.
It's all done.
So it's done, it's been dismissed. Anything else?
I don't have anything to add on that.
We don't have to approve it, it's already been done. Okay. Potential land sale, number 2.
So this is actually some information that was sent out to you as part of our negotiation with the folks from Hamilton Re. So you've got that email. I think I forwarded the most recent iteration out to you. Basically, what I'm just looking for is some feedback, if you've got any comments on that, or if you think we're in the right direction. You know, one of the issues we ran into was the problem of paying for infrastructure is something that obviously the council has set as a target, that the developers should always be paying for the development. And so, you know, our initial letter was they brought their proposal to the council in December. We sent a letter back to them, which was shared with the council members. So, you know, in that email I forwarded out to you, they're requesting purchase price of $175,000. After we negotiate this, they would like options on land for both the lot that's right next to them and across the potential street where currently the sand company has that option. But if their option were to expire, they'd like right of first refusal on that. They agreed after we negotiated on their request for an 8-year tax abatement with a $55,000 annual cap and $440,000 total cap. And then we would be working with them to meet with the county and also the school. I have a meeting with the school tomorrow and with the superintendent, and then also we'd be going to the county at the end of the month at their second meeting in January. The goal here would be for them to pay for the infrastructure costs. We know that the land cost itself is going to have to be absorbed in the sale of the other 4 lots on this site. But that's kind of where it is right now, so I wanted to know if you guys had any other questions on that, or if there's anything you see as a major impediment.
No, I'm good. Keep the negotiation going. And
Okay.
Anybody else?
Oh, I like it.
It's identified as one of the things that the people in the comprehensive plan said was a priority.
You know, and I will say, some people say, are they getting a reasonably good deal? I think it's variable. You know, if you look at when they work with Byron, the deal that they got from Byron, I think it's relatively comparable. Part of it is this is the first, building. And I think typically when a developer comes, the first building maybe does get a little bit better deal. Once the road, the infrastructure is built, those other lot costs will be adjusted, as we need to pay in essence, we're gonna be assessing those lots for the cost of this project, so that it won't cost the taxpayers anything. That's our goal.
And we're still sticking with the development pays for development,
That's
basically.
absolutely right, that's right. So,
That's our ultimate goal.
yeah.
Do you know what the Byron School District chose to go with that, with the project there, like what they're,
As far as I know, the Byron School District did nothing. Yeah, and also I don't believe that they received any benefit from Olmsted County either. I believe it was just the
Did-
city of Byron, they did a 10-year tax abatement.
did they ask those two?
You know, I wasn't privy to their negotiations there, and I did talk to
Curious.
Mary and Byron, before, just to ask about their interaction, and she didn't share any details with me at the time, so.
This would be a benefit to the school district to have this many new families come in.
And that's kind of the case that I'm gonna try and make with superintendent and see what kind of things they can do. I know there's some different tax rules for school districts as opposed to how their funding comes through, so it might be beneficial for them to do some sort of lump sum, you know, kind of discretionary disbursement right away. What we're looking at doing is a pay-as-you-go tax abatement, which means that, you know, the only tax revenue that they'll be getting is money they've already paid in, and they won't be getting anything back until they've paid it to us. So, whereas it might be easier for the school to do something else as more of just an incentive, you know, it may not be their full amount, but, we'll see what Mark has to say, and, you know, he's very reasonable to work with usually, so.
Okay. And next, we're gonna go to closed session, so we've got 3 separate closed sessions. The first one, would that be recorded? Personnel review will be recorded, the union negotiations will be recorded, and then the closed session for litigation strategy will not be recorded. So we'll close the public meeting and go to closed session, we'll open the closed sessions back up afterwards. If you wanna hang out in a different part of the building, that's great. If you wanna leave for the night, have a good night. Thanks for coming.